we'll chat about mindful eating. Or intuitive eating, should I say. All right, let me just get this onto YouTube, make sure the settings are correct. Yes, they are. Okay. Ooh. Hey, Bridget.
Sorry, no thanks.
Good. Going for the outside view today?
Can you see me, or is it really glary?
Now I can see you perfectly. Yeah. You look like you've got a fake Zoom background on. You know, like you're pretending in a tropical location. Actually a real one. Yeah. Cool.
If you were here, you wouldn't say that.
Huh?
If you were here, you wouldn't say that.
Yeah. Isn't it mental though that we're allowed back outside?
I know, right? It's a dream.
It is the dream.
The canal last night. Oh my God, the canal in Portobello. The group of people.
Party. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know. People drinking cans, big groups everywhere, all ridiculous stuff. Yeah, there you go.
How are the outdoor classes going?
Yeah, the outdoor classes are going good. We might change up the timetable a little bit, just depending on demand. So we're looking at like the different classes, how they're going and stuff like that. We might split the groups up as well into 2 groups of 8 and stuff like that, just to make it sort of safer. We'll see how we go. Not that it matters compared to all the people drinking on the canal, but you know, it's got a safety first and that. Cool. So I'll tell you what, we'll kick off and just to introduce the session today. Obviously, guys, same as usual. Once you got questions about protein, I'm sure, which we will answer, chuck them in the chat box so we can read them out. But Bridget's going to chat to you a little bit about what she does on her nutrition program, including mindful or intuitive eating. I've got some thoughts on this, so I'll throw in at the end, but I'll hand it over to you just to, yeah, if you want to give us a run through maybe your program and how you structure it with your clients. And then the concept.
So I know some people see mindful eating and intuitive eating as kind of similar, but I kind of break it up into 2 kind of different entities. So I can touch on both. That's absolutely fine. So in terms of how I kind of introduce it, so I do these like weekly challenges with people. So they have to implement things kind of per week that they wouldn't have necessarily done before. So something mindful eating is something that I try and get them to implement quite early on and then carry through for the whole challenge, because it is really difficult and you're not going to just kind of get the hang of it in a week. Then other things would be like sleep, water intake, managing stress, all those kind of things. So I touch on a different topic each week. But the point is that it's like a domino effect. You have to kind of keep doing each one until the challenge ends. You can't just kind of be like, okay, this week is over, a new challenge. So the point is that you focus on things outside of just your food intake that can contribute to your diet, so and can contribute towards your goals. Because I think a lot of people, they focus so much on calories and deficits and everything, blah blah, which is all, you know, super important, but there's so many external factors that you need to think about. So yeah, I suppose just to introduce mindful eating, it's basically like, it's really hard to explain it without sounding like really like spiritual. Like that's not what it's really meant to be. It's basically getting in tune with your food and getting in tune with what you're essentially eating in order to kind of save you eating too much, overeating, improving your digestion, and basically saving you a lot of calories. Like that's the long and short of it. Then in terms of eating more intuitively, that is basically what I would link up to kind of like more flexible dieting. So you're essentially you're listening to your kind of hunger cues and you're reaching for things that you may want, but without, they may have been labeled by diet culture as like bad or, you know, not in line with your goals. But the more intuitively you eat, the less you'll have cravings. So if you grab for things like chocolate every day, you're less likely to want to binge on chocolate at the weekend and go into a surplus, you know? So that's kind of the two kind of premises, the 2 kind of basics around mindful eating and intuitive eating. So do you want me to go into more detail with mindful?
Yeah, go on. Hit us up with a bit of mindful eating. Like, how would you use it, like, say, in your day-to-day life?
I don't. I'm not gonna lie. I go through bouts of trying to eat mindfully, and it is so hard. Like, it's something that you really have to focus on. So I'd suggest what I'm about to explain. I'd suggest anyone who wants to give this a go to just start with one meal a day. Don't go full throttle and be like, I'm going to eat all 3 meals mindfully or everything mindfully, because it's just not going to work. It's not going to happen. So basically, the premise behind mindful eating is, so your what you put into your mouth and your calories and everything and your appetite are predominantly controlled by hormones. So specifically, those hormones are called ghrelin and leptin. So obviously no one needs to know that, but ghrelin essentially is the hunger hormone and leptin is the hunger reducing hormone. So one lets you know when you're full, one lets you know when you're hungry. So basically, as you're eating, these hormones are taking effect. So your ghrelin is being reduced and your leptin is being increased. So essentially, the hormones are sending a signal to your brain to let you know that you're starting to get full. This whole process of the hormones going up and down takes 20 minutes, like about 20 minutes, no shorter than 20 minutes. So if you eat too quickly, you're essentially not allowing your brain enough time to get that signal that you're full, and you end up overeating. It's as simple as that. So say you get a meal and you're absolutely starving and you like literally demolish it in 5 minutes. Not only will you feel super, super full and uncomfortable, but you've eaten way more than you probably needed, because you didn't give yourself that time to work out whether you actually needed all that food or not. I know it sounds a bit like airy-fairy, but trust me, it works. Like, it's something that takes time and it takes a lot of effort. So I'll run through some tips I have of how to actually implement it kind of effectively. But basically that's kind of the long and short of it. It also helps with digestion. So people don't realize that digesting your food properly can actually lead to less of a calorie intake, because the more you digest what goes into your mouth and to your gut, the less calories you actually take in, essentially. So you need to, with mindful eating, you essentially need to chew your food a lot more in order to actually take 20 minutes to eat it. So like little tips would be like to pick, when you're going to pick a meal of the day to practice it or whatever, don't pick a meal where you're absolutely famished. So say you get up in the morning, you're one of those people where you're just starving for breakfast. Don't pick breakfast as the day you're going to decide to eat mindfully, because you're literally just not going to be able to do it. Same with dinner. I find once you finish work, you're starving for dinner. So dinner's maybe not the best call. I find the easiest one to do is lunch, because you're at kind of that state where you're just like, you're kind of hungry, you're not absolutely starving. You know, you could kind of, I don't know, maybe it's subjective, maybe it's kind of different with other people, but I found lunch the easiest to do it. And you essentially can control, can take that 20 minutes to kind of just sit and control your food. So yeah, I have loads of tips, but did you want to?
Well, yeah, I just kind of discovered mindful eating by mistake, because like working in sales for years, like let's say, for example, it was like fast pace, you know, you might grab a sandwich, but let's say you're halfway through your sandwich and then you get on a call, and I usually walk around when I'm speaking to people on the phone.
Yeah.
So maybe you're on a call for 20 minutes and then you come back and you're not hungry anymore, because your body's actually digested, the hormones have kicked in, and they're like, oh, I actually don't want the rest of that sandwich, I'll have that for dinner or something like that. So that like kind of like have some of your meal, maybe go for a quick 15-20 minute walk, let yourself digest. I've found that has actually been a really good way. It also gives you a nice break as well, because we're all so glued in. Any other tips you'd give?
Yeah, no, I have an absolute mountain of them. So so the first one that people will definitely struggle with the most is eliminating distractions. So don't be on your phone when you're eating, don't be watching TV, don't be on your computer, don't be doing anything else. So, you know, essentially put yourself in that kind of headspace where you can completely kind of be in tune with what you're putting into your mouth. Like, do you ever watch TV or you chat or you're kind of like, you know, on your phone or whatever, and before you know it, your plate is empty and you're just like, shit, where'd all that food go? You know, I don't even remember eating it, because you're kind of just mindlessly eating as you're watching TV or whatever. So why this helps is essentially you're just sitting there, and I'm not saying sit there in silence, you know, you can sit with your housemate or your partner or whatever and kind of eat alongside them, you know, chat to someone, you know, treat it like a little lockdown experience or whatever, but you essentially are in tune with what you're eating. You're in tune with your fullness and your hunger cues, but also the fact that you're not mindlessly doing something else means that you are probably going to take longer to eat it. Next tip is just set yourself a timer. Literally put 20 minutes on your phone, set yourself a timer, put your utensils down in between each bite. It seems like a really stupid thing, but trust me, it works. Like when you're chewing, put your utensils down. The actual effort of having to put your utensils down and up each time is wasting time. So it's essentially, if you just keep them in your hand the whole time, you're more likely to kind of shovel it in. So that's another one. Pick food that is kind of stereotypically quite difficult to eat, you know, as in fibrous veg, things like that. You know, don't pick a soup, you know, because you're not going to spend 20 minutes, you know, eating a soup. It's going to just, you know, it's just like liquid, you know.
Dry crackers.
Something that literally requires a lot of chewing, a lot of, you know, it's going to take a lot of time, you know. What else can you do? Sip water. So literally get a bottle of water and just take sips of water throughout during the meal. There's these misconceptions that doing that is actually poor for your digestion, but it's not. It really helps, and it really helps with something like mindful eating as well, because you're essentially like dropping your utensils, taking a sip of water, blah blah. And what else? God, I have so many. I actually have them written down, so I might have a few more that I can get up here.
Yeah, you can have a quick look there. I definitely find like those little breaks. One of the things I try to do in the morning time is like I'll make some like delicious oats. It'll be yogurt, maybe a chuck a bit of protein, blueberries, bit of honey, like because I really enjoy it. And then not having my phone out, because like I know like there's always like messages from like, you know, people asking questions about movement or like emails and stuff. But I just like, I don't ignore you guys, don't get me wrong. I mindfully eat, okay? And I'll just put the phone down and then like just enjoy it. Like actually go out to my balcony, sit down, taste the food, like taste the food.
Oh, yeah.
And you go, fuck, this is good. Because if you're just like eating and you're on your phone, you're on Instagram or whatever, or TikTok, gotta get off TikTok. Definitely too old for TikTok.
My boyfriend said the same. He's like, I need to get off it because I'm just not that demographic.
No, like it's good, but then you're like, I'm spending my time with 15-year-olds dancing.
Yeah,
this is weird. So anyway, food. We're on nutrition, not TikTok. What else you got for us?
No, that's exactly it. Like you literally just touched on it there. Like things like being able to actually taste the food and appreciate it can really help. So if you have an issue in particular with portion control, right? So say if you're like absolutely starving and you just put literally everything but the kitchen sink on your plate, you're gonna, if you eat quickly, you're gonna just eat all that. You just are. That's just the reality of it. You're gonna ingest way more calories than you need. But if you eat mindfully and you're like, right, set a timer, 20 minutes, blah blah, you will probably only end up eating like 3/4 of that or half of that, and you're saving yourself a bunch of calories whilst improving your digestion, whilst actually ingesting less calories from improving your digestion. So what I used to do, because I tried to implement this when I worked in an office, because I find office life is just so bloody hectic. You're just running between meetings, you're grabbing food as you go, like you never have time to kind of just sit down and enjoy something. I would wait for my friend to go for lunch, who was literally the slowest eater in the entire world. She was like a baby bird. She would like cut everything up into like 10 million pieces. And I'd be like, when are you going for lunch? And I would just sit opposite her and I'd like mimic her eating. So she would take like 20 to 30 minutes minimum to eat a meal. And like, I would just mimic her and I'd be like, fine, I'll just like follow your pace, you know, because no one wants to be that person that's finished first and you're just kind of sitting there awkwardly waiting for everyone else to finish with their food. So I know it's ridiculous, but if you have someone in your house who eat really, really slow, just try and kind of sit beside them, mimic their food, kind of just, you know, implement all the above. And trust me, it will help so much with your digestion. You'll never feel that feeling of feeling like horrible and, you know, bloated. And
well, I think we're conditioned with our eating as well, because especially you pointed out like that work life where, you know, obviously now we're not all in offices, but you're just running to a meeting, you're grabbing food, you're conditioned. I also find it's like that little reward. Sometimes like if I'm really hungry and I eat really fast, I'm guessing a dopamine reward where I'm just like, ooh, that was nice. And I eat some more like really quick. So it's like we're rewarding ourselves. I think if you understand that principle of reward as well, and your hormones, like why we do something, like why do you have a beer, why do you take drugs, why do you do exercise, you know. Hey, yeah.
You just froze.
Sorry, I dropped out there. I did. My internet dropped out. Is everyone still back? Thumbs up. We're back now. That was me. Sorry, guys. Internet dropped out for 3 seconds. So I was saying, so we've talked about the mindful stuff. What about intuitive eating?
There we go. Sorry. I just need to get the dog out. So
we're all back on, team?
Intuitive eating is slightly different. Eating intuitively is essentially listening to your kind of hunger cues and just rolling with whatever you're kind of craving. Like, I don't like to say the word craving because you shouldn't have cravings if you eat intuitively. That's kind of the premise behind it. So basically, there's been so much research on this and books published and everything. And like, you know, I'm only touching the surface with it. You know, it's not something that I'm necessarily pitching to my clients yet, because I feel like you have to be quite, you have to essentially be quite well versed with your diet before you can approach something like intuitive eating. You know, it's not something that I would recommend for someone who's literally started on a calorie deficit, because they need to gain that kind of self-control first, I suppose. But basically, what it is just listening to what you want. So if you're like going through the day and you feel like a donut, eat the donut, because you're more than likely not going to binge on the donut if you just give yourself it. You know, give yourself one donut and you'll generally be all right. You're not going to just have, you're not going to have 10 donuts because you've given yourself the opportunity to have one. Whereas if you're all week, you're just like, I'm not going to have a donut, I'm not going to have a donut. Monday to Friday, Saturday comes, I'm going to treat myself today. You're not going to stop at one donut. You're going to have like more, unless you've insane self-control, you're going to have a donut and then you're going to be like, I feel like some crisps now, I feel like some sweets now, and you're just going to keep rolling, and suddenly you're going to end up literally probably ending up in a calorie maintenance level just because you've gone crazy, you know? So it's kind of, it's a bit contradictory to the whole week deficit thing, because you are encouraged obviously to kind of save calories for the weekend if you do like to overeat at the weekend or eat alcohol at the weekend or whatever. But that isn't telling you that you should be binging at the weekend. You know, it's kind of telling you that if you want to eat something you like, you should have the calories left to do that. You shouldn't be restricting yourself so much or being on the same amount of calories every day. Whereas intuitive eating is essentially just like eating bits of what you like every day. That's why whenever I see people with their food diaries kind of, you know, with chocolate in their snack section or whatever, I'm just like, you do you, you know, great. Like, you're not kind of reaching for the health bars that are marketed as, you know, healthy or whatever. You're just kind of grabbing whatever you want because that's what you feel like. And they're making it work, you know, in their weekly deficit. So that's kind of the basics behind intuitive eating. It's kind of a bit of a science, and it definitely can, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you're quite, as I said, like in tune with what you're eating. But it's a pretty good strategy for flexible dieting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the reasons, I suppose, when someone's doing a 28-day challenge or a 6-week challenge, we don't go into the level of depth you go to, like, let's say with the hormones on your challenges, like leptin, ghrelin, etc. Or we don't go into detail with intuitive eating, is because people need to have the basic principles down first.
Yeah.
Once you have the principles, it's like college or school. You need to step through the phases and stuff like that. When I first started as a PT in the gym I worked at that specialized in nutrition, we like taught everything, but it was too much.
Yeah.
So I just realized if I just scale that back to the core principles, then people, again, like by coming to these calls or doing your course or whatever, like they can start to go to next level. Now, like I know, like from just like trial and error and years of doing, like what food I can eat, what food I can't eat, what works for my body, what makes me feel good, what makes me feel like I've got energy. Doesn't mean I always stick to it, but I'm aware of it.
You have the knowledge.
So I can intuitively eat. However, I think it was about, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe last year, there's a lot of influencers talking about intuitive eating, and I found it really irresponsible because they weren't talking about the principles of you know, fat loss, muscle gain, etc. Just like, oh yeah, eat what you want. And then for some people, they're like, oh, free reign. Yeah. And it's like, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago? It was like, if it fits your macros, have carbs if you want, you know, all that sort of stuff. So like, you'll just see like these like trends change. But I think the important thing is to be aware of the principles of eating. And so
a calorie deficit never changes. So a calorie deficit being the main fundamental of losing fat, that is never going to change unless no, I can't see any reason that would ever change. So a calorie deficit and a high protein diet, they're just the two kind of like fundamentals that are never going to change. Whereas there's going to be a ton of trends that are going to emerge around those fundamentals. But if you always follow those two fundamentals, you're onto a winner. The other one is more for experimentation. So think something like intuitive eating. I wouldn't like to kind of introduce it to someone as kind of like a whole strategy. It's made because that's kind of overthinking it. It's essentially just, you know, once you've nailed your calorie deficit, once you're eating, you're staying within about you're balancing out every week. Once you're hitting your protein, then maybe I can start introducing the concept of eating more intuitively, you know. But as you said, that takes a while. You know, you kind of need to nail the basics first. It's like telling someone to carb cycle when they've just started a fitness plan and they've never counted a calorie in their life. You know, you can't tell someone to do something like that until they're very, very well versed with nutrition and they're quite in tune with themselves.
Yeah. So guys, if you want to drop any questions in the chat box below, even if it's like questions like that you want to ask in around like protein, carbs, etc., just drop them in. The other thing is Bridget does her own nutrition course, so it's going to be like a little bit more advanced than ours. So like it's 12 week. Do you want to actually? I'll let you tell us a little bit about your course that you run as well, your nutrition program.
So I am running a 12-week block at the moment. So it's basically, it's a similar premise behind, you know, working out your individual calories, what your deficit should be, what your maintenance should be in accordance to your goals, you know, little things like that. So I have people who don't really want to lose any body fat and they just want to gain, or people who want to lose quite a lot of body fat, blah, blah, blah. So it's essentially giving them that individualized plan as you guys do yourselves. And then I suppose a few extras that I suppose this one is 12 weeks, so it's quite one of my longer ones, and they're usually shorter than that. But I find 12 weeks can be quite a good one if someone has never ever done it before and they kind of want to kind of go through the motions for quite a while. So I find if someone has maybe tried macros or calorie counting or something before, they would kind of like a shorter one because they kind of know what they have to implement. Whereas like with people who generally are just like, look, it's going to take me a while, I'm not going to grasp this straight away, you know, I find a 12-week can be quite effective. Then every week I basically share new recipes, so I'm constantly trying out kind of like macro friendly but also not macro friendly recipes. So like I do a lot of baking, it's kind of I do like macro breakdowns and calorie breakdowns. The whole point is to kind of show people you don't need to be on a diet of broccoli and chicken and rice to kind of, you know, achieve your goals. You know, you can easily experiment in the kitchen. It's also encouraging people to experiment in the kitchen and not kind of just rely on kind of processed foods or like takeaways and stuff during the 12 weeks. And then every week I send out a weekly challenge, as I touched on at the beginning. So it'll be something to focus on for that week. I don't test people on it at the end of the week. You know, I don't be like, oh, you know, send out a form or whatever and be like, did you implement this, whatever. It's more for yourself and for, as I said, to kind of carry on throughout the 12 weeks and to kind of like take each challenge to keep going. By the end of the 12 weeks, you've essentially implemented 12 new kind of mindsets that you may have not had before. And then other than that, it's just like, you know, like yourselves, weekly check-ins, reviewing food diaries, I go into as much or as little detail as the person requires. And yeah, that's basically it. I don't think I may have forgotten a few things, but on it, I've just opened up a few more spots. I'm nearly full for this stint, but I've opened up a few more spots. So if you are in any way interested and you follow me on Instagram or one other platform,
or even send me a message and I'll link you up with Bridgets.
Yeah, and I shared my website last week, so.
Cool. I find the best way to stay within your calories is to have a personal chef who cooks all my food for me.
Hello.
There
I
you
heard the chopping there.
go. He's doing the garlic. Yeah, he's got the chicken going on. It's very convenient.
Calling all the shots there, Rowan.
Exactly. He said in Spanish that you're very guapo. I don't know if you know what that means.
I do. I speak Spanish. I speak a tiny
Okay.
bit of Spanish.
Well, there you go. She says gracias. Cool. So Aaron had a question here. So thoughts on sodium overall, potential danger areas with high protein diets?
This is a really interesting question, actually, because I actually spoke to someone about this during the week. So basically, the average sodium intake from like the health services or whatever they're called is between 1,500 megs and 2,300. So 2,300 would be on the kind of the upper end of the scale. Basically, the issues with, so basically MyFitnessPal generally sets your sodium target to kind of the upper end of the scale. This is what I've noticed anyway. It may be different depending on certain people and how they input their calories or whatever, but what I've noticed seems to be the 2,300 meg kind of point. And most people are well underneath that, like almost under the 1,000 kind of mark or whatever, which is great. It really depends, you know. But basically the issue with high sodium diets is it, much like high carb diets, which obviously isn't a bad thing, it can increase your water retention and your fluid retention. So it essentially causes you to hold on to more water. So for like a fat loss phase, or where you actually weigh in, it will skew things like measurements and weight and stuff, because you're essentially holding on to a layer of water from the high sodium. So as well as other, like obviously like having a lot of salt in your diet is just trying to say, obviously not good in general, regardless of weigh-ins and everything. But in terms of high protein, I can't really see the correlation there, because I don't think high protein food items would necessarily be high sodium. Like, do you have a few examples? The main cases of high sodium that I see in people's food diaries are when they make homemade soups and they buy the kind of normal stock cubes. So stock cubes can have a lot of sodium in them. So I always advise people, if they're making soups and stuff, buy low sodium stock cubes. Things like soy sauce has a lot of sodium in it, so to buy the light soy sauce instead of dark soy sauce. Obviously salted nuts,
What is this?
obviously going to have a lot of sodium in them. So people kind of salted nuts instead of like plainer nuts. And obviously their sodium is going to go up for the day. And then just takeaways, processed food, any sort of processed food or takeaways will have a lot of salt in them inherently. What I advise people when they're buying products like the supermarket is to just have a look at the color coding, like the traffic light on the food packets. So basically, there's a color coding, like a traffic light system, a red, a green, and an amber on each kind of packet of food that you'll buy. Basically, green is low, amber is kind of medium, and red is high. I think that's quite self-explanatory. It basically touches on sugar, saturated fat, salt, and two other things. I think I can't think of it on my head, but all the kind of things that would be inherently kind of bad. So aim for a green to amber level of sodium when you're buying something, preferably green, but obviously not everything is going to be green. But try not to buy things that have like a red thing on the packet or whatever, because that essentially means that that's a super salty food.
And I think the question as well was around bacon. It sounds like Aaron's hiding under the stairs, just eating packets of bacon, going nuts.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, bacon isn't. Yeah, So yeah,
He's amazing.
Bacon is salty. Bacon is salty, but it's also amazing. So you need to just kind of fit it in. You need to just kind of, I wouldn't suggest bacon as your primary protein source for each meal, say, because it's not really a lean source of protein. As you said, it is very salty. So bacon is, I absolutely adore bacon, and I would always factor it into my diet regardless. But yeah, you can't really binge on bacon if you want to keep your sodium down for the day. It's the long and short of it.
Injected intravenously, man, it'll be grand. Good stuff. Well, let's say we looked at, we didn't have too many questions today, but we looked at mindful eating and intuitive eating. But it's the Jerry Springer moments. Bridget, your parting words of wisdom. What are you going to tell us to take today out into the world?
Every week I'm like, I'll prepare something for next week. No, I mean, it's my last one, isn't it? So I guess just
for now.
My last for now with you guys.
Yeah.
I guess just thanks for having me on and listening to me ramble from week to week, and hopefully you got something out of it. And you can always message me either on Instagram or elsewhere if you have any kind of more specific questions or like exercise nutrition questions, because that's what I specialize in. And then obviously if you are interested in the 12 weeks, I can give a special little movement discount until I get filled up. So that's it really.
Cool. Thank you very much. Mindful indeed. Yeah, so if anyone hit up it's devoted_nutrition. Have I got that right? Spelled out?
Yes. Where's my fish? So I'll type it here.
Yeah, type it in there.
Guys, you need to order this fish. It's the dream.
Oh, the fish you had on Instagram yesterday or today, was it?
I've had it like the last 3 days.
Sustainable Seafood Dublin.
They're online, but they also have a pop-up at the moment in Avoca and Ballsbridge.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, we popped there last weekend and just got an absolute haul. So we've just been eating fish all week.
Nice. That's near you, Diana. So happy days. I have to give a nutrition tip. Don't eat cheese if you just cut chicken with it. You'll get sick. One of the guys just cut some chicken, then some cheese, and then eat it. Yeah. Okay. On that note, I'm going to go save some lives from salmonella here. Okay. All right, team. Don't eat that cheese. Oh my God. Okay, team. I've got to go. There's people eating very poisonous cheese right now. Okay. We'll chat to you soon. See you at tonight's classes, guys. Thank you, Bridget. Chat soon. Bye.
Do you think that